Okay, so here we are. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison, and today's guest is going to be Nicole for today.
Hi.
Hi, Nicole. So tell us about yourself. What's a fun fact about you?
Oh, I guess that I have two corgis, Peabody and Parker. I've been here at MPL now just under a month.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's our reference librarian. Is Peabody and Parker, is that a literary reference?
it's not, but yeah, I know Peabody is a famous cartoon, but it was unrelated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounds, I like those names. It sounds like a cozy mystery detective duo.
Yeah, it would make a good children's book or something.
Definitely. So anyway, thank you so much for coming here as a guest. So for today, we're going to be talking about UFO experiences, UFO sightings, alien abductions.
Yes.
What's really, yes, and Nicole and I are going to be are going to be very objective about it. So skeptics and believers are all welcome.
Yes.
We just ask that everyone be nice to each other in the comments. Again, and I also want to add too, I know that people last time were a little shy, but feel free to put any comments or opinions down below on this Facebook Live video. We would love to hear from all of y'all.
We would, yes.
So moving on from that, we're going to get started by talking about some books we have. So the main branch has actually has quite a size of UFO books. And I know that we actually have a local author in the Valley, Noe Torres, I believe his name is.
Right.
We have some of his books here too, if you want to check it out. It's Noe Torres, and it is Noetorres. So the first book I have is called The UFO Experience: A Scientific Inquiry. It's by J. Allen Hynek. You can see it right here. It's a nice, fancy little edition. It's actually a pretty legit book. We see this book a lot in a lot of UFO reading recommendations. So it's kind of like I guess you could say a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Another one we have is Confrontations: A Scientist's Search for Alien Contact. So this is by Jacques Vallée, and I hope I'm not butchering that French name. I'm so sorry to any French viewers. But yeah, we have this book here. It's at the main branch as well, and it's interesting to see a scientific perspective on this, especially because it's still kind of a controversy, UFOlogy and whatnot. Right. But to get started, a reason why I wanted to bring up this topic of UFO sightings and alien abductions is because the Rio Grande Valley has its own story with the UFOs.
Yes.
Like, so I did a little research into this, and I'm just going to relay it to everyone here. But so we have a famous UFO crash site. It happened either November or October of 1966. Now, I've reached out to the author, Noe Torres, like about the exact date, because I was curious to see if I could find a newspaper thing. He did email me and let me know. We have been unable to find any newspaper accounts related to this case, and our request for records from the Hidalgo County Sheriff's Department and the Edinburgh Fire Department have yielded no results, mostly because the case is from so long ago and the records have been lost or destroyed.
Wow.
Which I don't know, like a part of me kind of wants to take a challenge and see, like, okay, maybe it's somewhere in the archive. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe if I go to Dallas or whatever, maybe it's there. But
yeah.
Such is the life of a library staff.
Yeah.
There's something.
It's interesting that these things go missing. Later on in my story, I'll go over that also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like there's a lot of questions like, okay, was it lost or did something happen? And I think that goes a lot for history. You know how they say history is the perspective of the winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, we're getting some comments here. Awesome. Hello.
Hi.
Good to see y'all. But so anyway, it happened either October or November of 1966. So the sheriff's son was the one that was able to tell the story to Noah Torres. The sheriff Ponce, he will later come into the story. But we're going to start by saying it all started one night with one phone call. So Sheriff J.R. Milo Ponce worked for the Hidalgo County Sheriff's Department. He got a call about a group of disturbed men. The location was from the farm to market Highway 490 north of Edinburgh, near Laguna Seca Road. So these men, there were 8 of them. They were from North Texas. They were white. They were not locals by any means. They were hired by a construction company to dig out a gravel pit. So according to the phone call, someone witnessed them on the side of the road yelling and screaming for help, and they went ahead and called the sheriff's department because, you know, seeing non-locals freaking out on the side of the road tends to unnerve people.
Yeah. 8 disturbed men.
Yeah. And I'm trying to imagine, so I'm trying hard not to imagine the valley as it is now. I feel like the valley in the 60s was more smaller, more small towny.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say? So
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm sure something like a satellite would have really stood out.
Sure.
I think if it was here in the 21st century, it would be like weirdos and then just
keep going.
So yeah, the dispatcher explained to the sheriff that these men were freaking out and that they needed to put out a fire. You see, the fire was at a ranch around 4 miles west of Highway 281. According to the Edinburgh City website, the charred and burned area was about 1/4 mile into the ranch next to some very large gravel pits. The men were taken to the sheriff's office. They got interviewed and spent the night in the office because they were like, "No, we're not staying there. No. We watched the horror movies. No." Yeah, they made it clear that they did not want to go back, and they left town the next day. So unfortunately, we weren't able to. We can't really trace back these men, and this was the 60s, and I'm thinking they were in the 40s, so they must be, if they're still alive, old. I mean, I could do the math, but I'm bad at math.
Wow. That's so interesting that the next day they just took off.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, you know, like the small town, you don't want to stick around being like, oh yeah, we're the people that saw this. I mean, it's just amazing how this event could lose so much recording, like documentation and such so fast. It kind of makes, I think, especially with what's going on right now in the world right now, you know, I've been hearing people say, like, you got to journal all this stuff down because you tell your grandkids what happened. I guess it just really gives you a perspective, like, write it down, jot it down, do not forget it.
Yeah, and this is all we have on it.
So according to these men, what happened that night was that there were these bright lights in the sky, and there was a loud throbbing sound. And then you see, this night was supposed to be a very quiet and still night. It was very calm, but out of nowhere, strong winds suddenly came on, like right out of the blue. And flames got shot down from the lights above, and they were striking an area with vehicles and a mobile home. So by the time firefighters arrived, the fires mostly died out and charred remains were left behind. A 12 by 60 mobile home, couple pickup trucks, a bobtail truck, and an excavating machine were damaged by this fire. According to Joe Ponce, his father told him that 2 men dressed in military uniforms showed up at this site and talked to another sheriff named E.E. Vickers. And, you know, they asked him for a report on the incident. According to the City of Edinburgh article, apparently Vickers thought the men might have come from the Moore Air Base, which is located about 6 miles southwest of the site where the incident happened. But the thing is, though, is that the base had been closed by the Air Force in 1961 and was no longer a military institution by the time of the incident. So he gave a report to these guys, and we don't know who these guys are.
Is there any report on what the charred remains were, besides the mobile home that was damaged?
From what I can understand, like, you could actually go to this area and you could still see charred stuff here and there. But yeah, like it's like it got blotted out of the records.
Yeah.
It's very unnerving, and it is a little frightening that, I mean, I don't want to be hypercritical, but Sheriff Vickers, like, he gave this report to you guys because he assumed, and he didn't get any background verification. Like,
Right.
I mean, to be fair, we didn't have technology then as we do now, where we'll be like, okay, can I see your case file? Can I see your badge? Okay, let me run this through. Okay, you're good. Let's go forward. I kind of get these Men in Black vibes.
Yes. Two guys show up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go on?
Oh no, that's so interesting that two people show up from a air base, and there's no report.
Yeah. It's like, so fun fact, I know that we get like blindsided by Men in Black, the movie. Like, it's all kind of lighthearted in a way.
Yeah.
But if you look at the original stories of Men in Black, they have a more darker idea about them. Like, there are these spooky men that are here to threaten witnesses of UFO sightings. People think that they're either aliens themselves disguising as humans to scare humans, or they're a part of the government here to keep a hush hush kind of situation.
Yeah.
Like, they're not Will Smith. They're not Will Smith dancing and singing. So, but yeah, that's our UFO story around here. And now, moving on to that, let's talk about the National UFO Reporting Center.
Yes. So I was curious about other sightings in the valley that have happened maybe more recent than that one in Edinburgh. And I came across the National UFO Reporting Center and found not only hundreds of sightings in Texas, but a few here in the valley. So I just wanted to go over a few. And these were as recent as February 2020.
Wow.
So the first was a sighting in Harlingen on February 20th, 2020. A person in Harlingen stated they saw a metallic green and blue sphere in the sky during the day. It moved slowly, and the whole occurrence took 6 minutes. A sighting in Alamo in January of 2020. The person stated they saw a bright star-like figure zigzagging in the sky, and the whole occurrence took 7 minutes. 2 sightings on the same day, which were in La Feria and Raymondville on November 21st of 2019. And then the most detailed and eerie one was one from Brownsville on October 11th, 2019. So at 3 a.m. in Brownsville, between 12th and 13th Streets, someone reported to the National UFO Center that they saw, or that they first woke up to the sound of strong winds. Thinking it was the sound of the AC. They woke up to check. They looked outside their door to see the AC machine. It wasn't that. It was something else coming from the back of the house. They headed to the back alley. There was a strong, bright light with strong winds circling around. And they stated this was not a helicopter. So they shut the door. They ran to their kitchen window. They said it took less than 5 seconds to get from the back door to the window. And they saw the light moving up into the atmosphere. According to them, it took 2 minutes. And they were so scared that they didn't report it to police, fearing that they would not be believed. So, they reported it here instead. So, imagine that. Seeing circling winds, but it wasn't a helicopter.
Yeah.
Do you think you would call the police?
I mean, honestly, I feel like in some ways the Rio Grande Valley is more open-minded in some ways, like part of our culture. Because I mean, we are a very so I was going to get onto this later, but we are fascinated by UFOs down here. Like we're like so Roswell is ranked, so we're ranked higher when it comes to UFO celebrations. We're ranked higher than Roswell, New Mexico, which, no offense to my New Mexicans out there, but according to the national reports, we're better about that. But I mean, at the same time, though, it's like, what could the police do? So I probably wouldn't, just because I was like, I could file a report, but it's not like the police have a car that they could go out into the sky and.
Yes.
But I do think it's interesting, though, too, is like this. I see this theme of strong winds coming out of nowhere.
Yes.
Like the similarities is just very fascinating to me.
Yes. And then finally, on May 13th, there was a UFO sighting in Mage, Brazil. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's Mage. It's outside of Rio de Janeiro. There's video evidence of the sighting of blue ball-shaped objects from onlookers, and even one of the supposed crash. Images of the spacecrafts, which appear like unfocused dots in the sky, were taken, and I think we might have a couple images.
Yeah, let me go ahead and open. I opened one of the links you shared with me. Let me see if we can put it up. Okay. Let me do Feel Me Now. And you guys see it?
That red one is one.
Oh, yeah.
So hundreds or thousands of Brazilians took footage of this. Some of them showed 5 blue spheres in the sky, while another showed that red illuminated light. And all of these clips flooded onto Twitter.
Yeah, let me share the other one you have here. Let's see. Don't Fail Me Now. Okay. Yeah, this is the second one, right?
Yeah.
So with double the speed. So I know that people will argue that these are drones or airplanes.
Yeah.
And like I can see where they're coming from too, but at the same time I'm like, I've never seen drones like that exactly.
Right. Yeah, skeptics think they're skydivers or drones. But despite all of the clips, the city released a statement that they were not aware of any unusual incidents, and the Brazilian Air Force didn't get any reports of unusual aircrafts.
Like, what's interesting though too as well is so JSTOR has actually done a very interesting article on this. Like, let's see if I can find it real quick. Don't fail me now, Google. Let's see. But yeah, like apparently like sightings of UFOs have been going on since the 1890s.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and just do a quick little share screen of what I have. Let's see. Okay, it is. Here you go. You guys see it?
Yes.
So this is called, if you go to JSTOR Daily, there's this article that's called The History of UFOs. I should stress that this is written by someone that's more on the skeptic side, Matthew Wills, which, totally fair. He has a right to write that. I'm not saying he shouldn't, but I'm just saying that don't be surprised if he's writing from a more skeptic perspective. And I think it's still a very interesting article, whether or not you believe in UFOs. So here you are. Like, here's an illustration of back in the day. So to discuss more on this, let's see. So discuss more on that. Basically, the first description of flying saucers came around 1947. Now, this is the jet age of the United States. This is the year that the Air Force became its own separate branch of the armed forces. And, the Cold War race started happening for space through the 1950s, and the United States Air Force came up with a category of the unidentified flying object for reports that could not otherwise be explained. So it wasn't originally meant for aliens, so to speak. It was more for I guess other countries' aircrafts. Like if they can't say like, what is that?
Yeah.
What are the Russians doing? What is that? What is that invention? It was more for that context. Now we use it more for aliens, because terminology is always flexible. So these events of UFO sightings happened in the 1890s. They happened in California, the Midwest, Washington, D.C. People witnessed these mysterious airships in the nighttime. One was described as a conical-shaped monster about 40 feet in length, with 2 sets of wings on each side and a large fan-shaped rudder. Some people didn't necessarily believe that these were aliens. They believed that it was some sort of invention genius, a sort of steampunk Tony Stark was doing these. Like, in fact, some people thought it was Thomas Edison that was behind these inventions. And they believed it to the point where Thomas Edison had to write, and I quote, a strongly worded statement that he had nothing to do with that. So these were happening in the 1890s into the early 1900s. And by 1903 was when the Wright brothers flew the plane. So take that as you will.
Right.
So let's see. I guess now to move on, let's talk about, oh yeah, here's the link actually too, if you want to check it out. But let's talk about the earliest alien abduction. We've been talking about UFO sightings, so let's get started on abductions, where people have been taken from whatever they're doing and thrown into these spaceships. So one of the earliest recordings of alien abductions was in 1957. Now, there were other tales of abduction before this case, but this was really the first one to receive wide attention. This was also in Brazil. Like Brazil, I'm starting to learn, is a hot spot for this.
They are, yeah. They have a long list of alien sightings or UFO sightings and abductions.
So we start the story with Antonio Villas-Boas. He was 20-something years old. He was a farmer. So one day he decided to work late to avoid the heat. He was out in the field, working, when he saw what he thought was a red star in the sky. And then gradually the red star appeared bigger and bigger in his vision until he realized it was a ship that was approaching him. So Boas tried to run off with his tractor, but the tractor suddenly stopped working. He then tried to run, but he was stopped by a 5-foot-tall alien in what he described in gray coveralls and a helmet. The alien didn't speak in words, but they were saying stuff and noises like barking or yelping. 3 other aliens appeared, and they took him inside the ship. So once he was inside, he got stripped down and got covered in this weird gel. He was led to a room that had strange red symbols over it. Bose claimed actually that he was able to memorize these symbols and later reproduced them for investigators. So we have this farmer, he's in this room he's never been in before. And the aliens started taking, according to Boas, samples of blood from his chin. After this, he was taken to another room and left alone for an hour and a half. Around this time, a gas was pumped into the room and it made him ill. After this, he was joined in the same room by another humanoid. This alien was a female one. She was around the same height as the other beings, and she had large blue cat-like eyes. Her hair was long and white. And Boas said he was strongly attracted to the woman, and the two had relations. Because, apparently, because I'm just saying that if it was a woman, would she? I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, so I feel like I can't judge, but at the same time, I'm like, really? Really?
She's an attractive.
Maybe it was the gas that just messed with his mind. I mean, we don't know. But anyway, they had relations, and he noticed that Boas noticed that she did not kiss him, but she didn't nip at his chin. So the chin seemed to have this strange.
Something about the chin.
Yeah, I'm not going to shame anyone, but okay. So when it was all over, the female had smiled at Boas, and and she gestured at her stomach as if to say, like, oh yeah, now we have a baby. And then she had gestured up, like so, as if to say, you gave me a baby, and I'm going to raise the baby in space. And Boas later said that he became angry at the situation because he felt as though he had been little more than a stallion for the aliens. He was then given back his clothing and taken on a tour of the ship by the humanoids. By this time, he tried to take a clock-like device as proof of his encounter, but was caught by the humanoids and prevented from doing so. He was then escorted off from the ship and watched as it took off, glowing brightly. When Boas returned home, he realized that 4 hours had passed when he was on that ship. So Antonio Villas-Boas, he later became a lawyer, had 4 kids, and he stuck to the story of his alleged abduction for his entire life. So some sources say he died in 1992. In reality, he died on January 17th, 1991 at around 56, 57 years old.
Wow. An interesting similarity that you mentioned was that red-like star.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Brazilians saw a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't think there's been any recent alien abductions called to mind. Mind you, I think people are more private about that in the age of social media. I mean, especially because we're more quick to be I think we're more quick to be judgy if something has been untrue.
Right.
Which is ironic because I think misinformation can still get spread pretty badly.
Yes.
I mean, what's your take on this whole story? Like this behavior?
I mean, it's very interesting. It seems like he was used for procreation. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there are going to be skeptics who say a lot. And the question of, are we alone? Is it worth, researching or not researching? But it seems like he went on to have a normal life. Somewhat normal.
I mean, he never tried to get famous from this, from what I read. Like, he never tried to, I mean, mind you, this was like around the 1950s, 60s, but I mean, I don't think he even wanted to bother showing up in a talk show or anything. So it's like, I mean, what does he get out of saying this stuff? I mean, yeah, he might get notoriety, but I don't think he would get paid for it.
Right.
But I will say too that a lot of skeptics argue that a lot of these alien abductions, that similar themes turn up.
Mm-hmm.
Like people say, well, they all have similar stories about this. Skeptics would want to say, well, yeah, that's because they probably grow up listening to it, and it entered their subconscious, and of course, their subconscious plays that out in their minds. For a lot of people, they want to argue that it was just a very vivid dream. So. Right. Just to point out the other side of this whole phenomenon.
Yeah, I think UFOs and extraterrestrials have a big part in American culture. We have a lot of movies on it, books.
Mm-hmm. And I think like aliens were not always like part of the mythology and world cultures. So there's this term for abductions that happened before the 1960s. Now, these are just, modern speculation that these stories, that they're being interpreted. They're interpreted as, maybe there was a UFO sighting. They're called paleo abductions. So to go back to what, those UFO sightings in the 1890s, in November 27, 1896, a colonel by the name of H.G. Shaw claimed he and a friend were harassed by 3 tall, slender humanoids whose bodies were covered with a fine, downy hair who tried to kidnap the pair. Another story in 1953 by Leroy Thorpe asks the question, are an unlucky few of us, and perhaps not so few at that, being captured with the same ease as we would net butterflies, perhaps for zoological specimens, perhaps for vivisection, or some other horrible death designed to... What makes us tick? Like, why are we being abducted all the time, basically? And yeah, and Rogerson writes that in the 1955 publication of Harold T. Wilkins' Flying Saucers Uncensored, he declared that Carl Hunrath and Wilbur Wilkinson, who had claimed they were contacted by some strange creatures, had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Wilkins reports speculation that this pair were victims of an alleged abduction by flying saucers. So, yeah, even before the 1960s, and you're like, what if these other mysterious disappearances? What if they're, what if it's aliens?
Yeah.
I feel very funny saying that, I feel like I'm the Mulder of X-Files, like, aliens. Those aliens. I'm missing my cup of coffee. Aliens.
Yes.
My cat meowed differently today. Aliens. But I'm just speculating. It's just all fun speculation. And everyone's welcome to share their own thoughts and feelings on this. But I think we're ready to move forward. How about you, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Edinburgh UFO Festival. So you can actually find information about the Edinburgh UFO Festival at www.edinburghufo.com. So it's an annual festival. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's ranked third best UFO conference in the United States. Apparently, we're better than Roswell, New Mexico. I'm just saying, let's flex that. We're better than Roswell. It's often held at the Dustin Michael Sakula Memorial Library. It's the library up in Edinburgh. So for this year, I did email them about their status with all that's going on. And the assistant director of cultural arts was very kind to let me know that they've postponed the event from April to August. They're going to continue to assess the current situation, and they're gonna update when that happens. Here you go. And they are gonna assess the situation, and there are, quote, "We are, however, prepared to cancel the event if the situation gets worse and schedule it for April 2021. If we do cancel for 2020 completely, all tickets will be valid for 2021. So they do have a backup plan if anything happens on that. And we do have someone that's saying that they read somewhere that they believe that Ra was an alien. Then again, it's just something I read, and yeah, I've heard of theories about that, like, ancient Egyptians and aliens. I can understand why people want to say that, but I do want to argue too that Egypt was known to be very diverse and cultural, and there were people with different ideas and stuff. Like, I know I've been watching some Egyptologists on YouTube. That's how I spend my my Memorial Day weekend. But they did point out too, like a lot of Egyptians, we memorize them by mummies and their beauty rituals. When ancient Egyptians want to be remembered for their laws and their what was considered a constitution back in the day. How they organized their civilization and everything. It's pretty fascinating. And yeah, I have heard that theory. I've heard that theory that and I don't know. I do feel a little odd about it too, because I'm like, okay, are we going to say the same thing for Vikings or for any other civilization out there? Or is it just the Egyptians? But that is an interesting thought to think. But yeah, Egyptology is its own topic. I don't want to veer off too much.
Right. Yeah, I don't know much about it, but that sounds so interesting. I think is it because the history of like their hieroglyphics show like saucer or like
Yeah, I think
in the sky.
yeah, I've heard of that too, and it's really interesting because from what I've seen, like a lot of those symbols are rife with so much meaning, from what I can see, and like it is its own language too. So maybe there's something lost in the translation that we don't know yet. Like I know, looking through it, like it seems kind of complex, especially because Egypt had different ages. So yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. It's interesting how there were different cultures, and you can argue how different cultures have viewed that. Like, I mean, I haven't seen anything that stands out from Brazilian sightings compared to US sightings, but I will say it's interesting how there's more in Brazil. And I do wonder if it's necessarily more that Brazil is a hotspot for UFO sightings, or is it that in the US people are more reluctant to report on that? I think even people that do report on UFO sightings tend to be more private. I mean, it's easy to hide behind a computer, right? So
yeah, and it seems like they're also scared to tell other people, like this Brownsville incident.
Yeah, and like, I mean, if someone were to tell me there was a sighting, like, I'm not saying I'm a skeptic, but I'm not saying I'm a believer. I think I'm between.
Right.
But I mean, I do think that there is. I mean, here's my argument. I feel like I have to justify this. Here's my argument. So we don't know anything about our own ocean. Like we only know like a small percentage of our ocean.
Yeah.
What's to say? So how can we say we know all there is up in space? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like scientifically there should be research done. I think like phenomena, like you said, in the ocean, in UFOs, I think it makes sense to me to scientifically research those.
Yeah, and ufology is very interesting. You know, for the most part, the scientific world does consider it a pseudoscience, but there have been some remarkable scientists that I think have partaken in the ufology and add a little bit of credibility to it. So for the scientific world, just a little bit. I'm not saying that every single scientist believes it now. I'm like, no, it's still controversial.
Right.
Scientists, please do not send me hate mail. I'm just saying it. I'm just saying. But yeah, it's interesting just to think about like what if. I mean, I think that's why UFO phenomena has been still a very big part of in the valley and in other places of the world because it's still I don't think it's gonna be solved for a while. But anyway, if anyone want to share any more comments, I think we're wrapping up pretty nicely. But it looks like, yeah, thank you everyone for sharing your own insights. Thank you, Rosalva Ruiz. You brought some pretty good, interesting topics to this too. So I think on that note, I think we're close to 40 minutes, and this has been a pretty fun subject.
It was fun. Thanks for having me, Allison.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicole. So before we go, I just want to say a thank you to everyone for participating. And like I said before, feel free to ask any questions or comments in any of our videos. We love hearing different opinions on this. So without further ado, we bid you adieu.
Bye.